Good evening. Welcome to the first um, posted lesson for a while. I've been doing a lot of these. Not all of them have worked, or they haven't either gone or looked like the way that I wanted them to. So I haven't posted one in a while. But here's hoping for this one being halfway decent. Um, this one's about perfect pitch and synesthesia and other kind of anomalies of musical existence that uh, need some light shed upon them, because I think the general public consensus, or at least stereotype, is that if you have perfect pitch, then you have some kind of a superpower, the ability to distinguish between notes. And somebody plays a G on an instrument, and you go, "That's a G." To know the name and the classification of the note being some kind of like actual ability, or kind of like buff to your ability, but it's not quite that. It's actually neither, which I'll get into for a second. But uh, one of the reasons I was inspired to revisit this lesson and deliver it was because, Emmanuel, the other night you said that you were working on some aspects of perfect pitch. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Um, I guess uh, how do I start this? Um, it's not really like fully the aspect of perfect pitch, but I guess like the entire overall theme about like being a child prodigy and those stuff. Yeah.
Could you elaborate on what it is to be a child prodigy from your perspective and cultural upbringing?
Essentially, in my point of view, let's say if I were to play Winter Wind, and or someone else was playing Winter Wind, and let's say if I was a child prodigy, and I would pick up the entire piece by just listening to it once. Yeah.
Maybe just to define that term of prodigy, it means the unique human experience of someone being born with skill and knowledge without having to practice, work, or be inspired,
Yeah.
and usually demonstrating that skill at a very early age.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, are you
Mozart is one.
Mozart was one, Beethoven.
And yeah. And another one from my guess it's my inner circle is a Chinese child prodigy named Chloe Chua. You might probably heard of her. She's a famous violinist.
I have, yes.
Yeah.
It's quite remarkable.
Yeah.
It, kind of one of like the outliers of human experience. Of course, like one of the giant drawbacks of the human race is that, or not a drawback, but it's definitely a defining feature of it, is that we are born um, uh, codependent, and we continue to be codependent for about 20 years. Uh, what that really means is that you have to install the same software on every human being for every generation. So, somebody born in 2010 requires the same level of software installation that somebody born in 5000 BC. And all of the knowledge that's gained throughout your life is, usually lost with your life. And that's just the human condition. But there are like, imagine that if like Elon Musk had a kid and they were just like born with all of the knowledge of Elon Musk, right?
Yeah.
Like, how much faster over the course of like the last 100,000 years would humans have evolved? And yet, deer are born running. They're born and then they run. They didn't have to learn how to walk over the course of 2 years like a human. Um, they're just born running. That's incredible. Like, there's a word for that in Cree culture. The word is oshikwa. Oshikwe. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Elder Kathy, please teach me again. But what that word means is that we are pitiful, but not in a derogatory way, meaning kind of in comparison to our the beings that we share the planet with, eagles, foxes, fish, animals in general. We are fairly pitiful. Like, look at our fur. Our fur is awful. We have no fur. We can't fly. We can swim, but only for a little bit, and then we have to come back up for air. Like, animals are incredible. They can soar through the sky. They can give birth to babies that run immediately and are like more or less independent. They can swim and breathe water. Animals are amazing, and humans are pitiful. That's the word.
Yeah.
It's called Oshikwa. In Blaine's Cree, anyway. I need to revisit what that term means, but I imagine if we were all born with that, like, fish are born being able to breathe water. Unbelievable, right? And yet that's just reality. I imagine if humans were born with the same level of like technological and cultural expertise that an animal was, we would be evolving a lot faster and be able to adapt a lot faster. But yet some human beings are born completely able to distinguish musical pitch and to be able to play things that they've never seen before. Do you know of any anecdotes from Mozart or Beethoven or any other child prodigy you're aware of that you want to add here?
Oh, I forgot his name, but he was like this. I think he was British, but he had like this really awesome pitch where he can literally identify the notes or the sound between. What's the term for that one? Like between the notes that you can hear. Yeah, that one. Forgot his name, Jamie something. I don't remember.
Jamie Cullum. Yeah,
him.
Yeah, he's got excellent relative pitch. There's an example of a prodigy. If there's time after everything I have kind of in my playlist here to show you today, I'll play some of him. But he's a superhuman. He's in that category. Yeah. Sorry, not Jamie Cullum. I'm Jacob Collier.
That one, yeah, Jacob.
Jacob Collier. Yeah. I'm sorry. JC. Jason. Jesus Christ. Oops. Sorry. Anyway. Sorry, getting back on track here. There are people born with the ability to be able to name musical pitches with just hearing them. Of course, they have to be taught music theory first to capitalize on it. But where this usually comes from is a condition called synesthesia. Are you familiar with synesthesia at all?
No, not too much yet.
Okay, so imagine hearing a piece of music and it triggering a psychological episode in which you are able to see sound as color, and taste sound, and smell colors, and all of your senses, taste, touch, smell, sound, sight, are all kind of combined in your brain and become one sense, but sometimes separate and confused. Like, you hear a note and you go, oh, that's blue. You smell a potato and you go, oh, that's A sharp. It's a very strange and beautiful and also debilitating condition in which you are able to have a more kind of like objective view on sensory input because you're able to sense it in multiple ways. And there are, it seems to be that it is expressed most commonly through artists throughout history. Like Van Gogh was a synesthete. That's synesthesia. A synesthete is somebody who can experience things like tasting a color or hearing a smell and this sort of thing. To people like you and me, I get it. Like you're like, what is that?
That is really hard to comprehend, though.
Yeah, and you can't possibly.
Yeah, that I can't comprehend.
But there's a couple of people who articulate it better than I can, who I'll show it to you later. The first of which is the artist Lord. Are you familiar with Lord?
Religious-wise?
No. Lorde. She's a.
Oh no.
Okay, she's a songwriter from New Zealand, who became Grammy-winning quality artist at age 17, and thought her career was going to go bonkers. Like, oh, you won a Grammy at age 17? Okay, here we go. But the process of music making for her is exhausting. I mean, like, just being on stage in a loud place, doing difficult things with high sensory input for any average human being is exhausting, even if it's only for an hour, hour and a half, it's exhausting. But she also can smell the sounds that she's making and can see the colors of her voice. And like a psychotropic experience is just her existence. And it's very interesting. It might be worth noting that Lord is completely sober. And for most synesthetes, reality is bonkers enough to not have to augment it with whatever else you choose to put into your body. It might also be interesting to note that synesthetes, generally speaking, don't drive. Because that red light smells like whatever. Like the sounds that are going by. Like you use all of your senses to drive. But if all of your senses are all muddled up, or changing spaces with each other, hearing like colors and tasting red lights and so forth, it becomes overwhelming. And that's just not safe. So for her, giving a performance is like a marriage or a funeral. It's just a lot of input at once. But it's part of who she is. Anyway, I wanted to show you a video of hers, particularly paying attention to the visuals behind it. This was on Saturday Night Live about 4 years ago. She would have been 18 at this point, 17 or 18. And you might notice that it's also fairly minimal, or at least there's sections of it in which there's almost nothing going on or very little going on, just to give her a moment to just chill. And then she later I'll show you an interview about this, and believe me, it connects to perfect pitch later, I promise.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lord.
I do my makeup in somebody else's car. We order different drinks at the same bars. I know about what you did and I wanna scream the truth. She thinks you love the beach, you're such a damn liar. Oh, those great whites, they have big teeth. Oh, they bite you. Thought you said that you would always be in love, but you're not in love no more. Did it frighten you how we kissed when we danced on the light up floor? On the light up floor. But I hear sounds in my mind, brand new sounds in my mind. But honey, I'll be seeing you ever be seeing you down every road. Cause honey, I'll come get my things, but I can't let go. I'm waiting for it, that green light. Oh, I wish I could get my things and just let go. I'm waiting for it, that green light. I want it. Sometimes I wake up in a different bedroom. I whisper things, I said he sings them back to you. Those rumors, they have big teeth. Oh, they bite you. Thought you said that you would always be in love, but you're not in love no more. Did it frighten you how we kissed when we danced on the light of floor? On the light of floor. But I hear sounds in my mind, brand new sounds in my mind. But honey, I'll be seeing you ever I go. But honey, I'll be seeing you down every road. Cause honey, I'll come get my things, but I can't let go. I'm waiting for it, that green light. Oh honey, I'll come get my things, but I can't let go. I'm waiting for it, that green light. Yeah, honey, I'll come get my things, but I can't let go. I'm waiting for it, that green light. Oh, I wish I could get my things and just let go. I'm waiting for it, that green light. I want it. I'm waiting for it, that green light. I want it. I'm waiting for it, that green light. I want it. I'm waiting for it, that green light. I want it. I'm waiting for it, that green light. I want it. I'm waiting for it, that green light. I want it. I'm waiting for it, that green light. I want it.
So I don't know if you were able to read any of the kind of like emotional signs on her face when she was giving that performance, but it's quite clear that it's a big endeavor for her, right? I mean, any kind of like live performance is a big endeavor for anybody, but it takes a lot out of her. Like it was like she just like ran a marathon.
It's just that overwhelming then.
Yeah, this is like the level of input that's going into the brain, and to like to wince at the input and be able to deliver as an artist. So this is somebody who's quite clearly capable, more than capable. She won a Grammy at age 17, but is like pacing herself, because I think there's been 3 albums over the last 8 years, which is, for the, generally speaking, behind pace. Not that pace is a real thing at all, but for her colleagues, say, you know, like somebody like Taylor Swift, who has, you know, released 1 to 2 albums every year since age 14. It's a bit behind, but the quality is not behind. Don't get me wrong. So again, this is connected to Perfect Pitch, but she gave an interview about this on Australia's 60 Minutes a little while ago. Here's an excerpt from that. Just I've heard talking about it. Well, before I do that, anything to add to that performance that you wanted to share or experienced?
I noticed like during like her performance, it changes like the colors. I am assuming that also overwhelms her in a way, right? Like the lighting in the studio.
And that's a little bit by design. There's not flashing lights. There's not a lot going on. There's just a singular color, right?
And assuming that also in a way that also I guess a small factor that adds to her overwhelming, I guess, like things going into her mind then.
Yeah, probably. Uh, uh, I thought it was interesting that they chose red, even though the song is called Green Light.
Yeah.
And as you'll see in this interview, she talks about how that song was inspired by like just driving down the road and seeing a fog of green, and that turning into poetry later and song about songwriting. We've talked about that before, but let's see what she has to say about that particular thing. You'll see. Here we go.
So you have synesthesia. So you see sounds as colour.
Yeah.
Right? Is that something you've had since you were born?
I have had it. I mean, ever since I can remember. It's definitely an interesting thing when it comes to making music. For it to be so kind of multi-sensory.
So it's almost like a sixth sense.
I mean, maybe that sounds quite fancy. I'll take it. I mean, I feel like a real hippie talking about this, but it's like this sort of. Sometimes it's like a bit of a cloud of like color that will hang in the air. Like it's not a flat color. It's like there's depth to it, and sometimes you can see through it, and sometimes it's more dense.
We aren't caught up in your love affair, and we'll never be royals. It's a running out of blood. That kind of luck's just ain't for us. We crave a different kind of buzz. Let me be yours.
But with a song like Royals, that has always been gold. Always.
Gold, that makes sense.
Kind of does, I think, yeah.
Come get my things, but I can't let go. I'm waiting for it, that green light.
And do I even need to ask with your new single, Green Light?
That's an interesting one because the whole song was just appearing so green before I'd written that line or anything. I remember driving home over the Brooklyn Bridge in the back of a cab and just seeing this moving green, like almost I couldn't really see out the window because I was just seeing this green. And then I think, subconsciously I kind of got around to this green light thing. It's not often that you can actually work the colour into the lyrics of the song, but that one was just so obvious. I could literally see that green just in front of my kind of eyes. It was amazing.
I'm waiting for it, that green light, I want it. I'm waiting for it, that green light, I want it.
So, I know that what you just saw kind of contradicts what I said about performances being like very minimal and singular color and no flashing lights and stuff. You can see why she's not doing like world tours all the time, despite being a best-selling artist. It's like, yeah, I got 3 months of that in me, and then I'm done because this is bonkers, right?
Yeah.
If I'm trying to approach this with a sense of empathy, imagine somebody with like massive stage fright and social anxiety and agoraphobia, being forced to be like in a public pool in the middle of the pool for like 20 minutes. It would be hell, right?
Yeah.
And then, but that's also your profession. Anyway, okay, so how this connects to perfect pitch. Synesthesia and perfect pitch aren't always, as a rule, combined, but can be traced from one to the other in the sense that you're able to identify things objectively. If I play you a single note, here we go. I'm going to play a note. You name it. Ready? Go. Exactly. No,
I don't know.
it was not a D.
Close enough.
Here we go. Let's do another one.
F?
No.
Yeah, no.
You're guessing. I know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So would I be. To be clear, those were F, D, and E. F6, D5, and E7. Yeah, so like you're just guessing. There's no way. And you, as like an accomplished, experienced musician who's been practicing for a long time, you don't have that ability just by practice.
Yeah.
Maybe in the right circumstance and with the right level of chance, you'd be able to tell which one is which. But if I told you, like, what color is this?
It's like red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? What color is that?
White.
You're able to objectively store it in your head without any effort.
It's the same concept. Yeah.
Same concept. It's just
For
there.
music notes.
And
Or for music sound. Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to make that understandable to somebody who does not have perfect pitch, and that's a really bad term for this thing, by the way, because it's not necessarily a super ability. It's more of like a neurodiversity, and okay, that needs more context after you seeing somebody do this sort of thing crazily, and it's usually available to people at a very young age. In the same way that, you know, people learning to read from a young age, you show them a letter T and they go, "That's a T," and it sounds like this, T, and then they know T, right?
Yeah.
And also, I'm curious about your experience with this as a Filipino person. Generally speaking, and it's not just because of the population statistics, people who speak pitch-based languages like Mandarin, Cantonese, Vietnamese, Korean, Japanese a little bit less, but still kind of in that same kind of ballpark. And well, Tagalog's not pitch-based, but you're familiar with like Southeast Asian pitch-based languages.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah. So like the way that you actually deliver a phrase in the pitch in which you're delivering it.
Oh yeah.
Context, like, and there's some of that in English, like you could say hello or hello.
Yeah.
That, but the word means a different thing in a different context completely.
Yeah.
So this phenomenon of being able to distinguish musical pitch as being objective instead of subjective is far more common in Southeast Asian people. Probably because of the linguistic practices, but anyway, okay.
Yeah.
So there's this kid named Dylan Beato, named after Bob Dylan, who is the
secondhand
son of a legendary record producer, and of course, this record producer and also a stellar musician. Have taught his son music theory because you know football players kick a ball around with their kids and artists paint pictures with their kids, and I teach my son violin, and you know musicians tend to give their skills to their offsprings because that's just what you do. So this kid is not a musician. He's not a practicing musician, but his dad taught him music theory, and now from time to time they make videos about his perfect pitch skills. And it's not just like, here's an A.
Was it achieved? Wait, you say it was achieved? Or did he actually?
No, he had it.
Oh.
And his dad helped him build on it. But it's not something
okay.
that he does. He's not like a Beethoven or Mozart where that's just what they do with their life, compose and so forth. But and also he's not just going like, that's a C. He's going like, hey, son, what's this? Tell me all the notes and then sing them. Right?
Yeah.
That's what he's doing. You'll see it's insane. And I mean that in a very complimentary way. Then we'll watch a video about what this actually means for an average human being and what it's like throughout your entire life.
For those of you that have asked me if I'm ever going to do another video with my son Dylan demonstrating his perfect pitch, we just did one. I'll play the entire video in a couple minutes. My first experience with social media, or with maybe mainstream social media, came from a video that I posted on my personal Facebook channel back in 2015, 4 years ago. This video made its way around the world with about 22 million views altogether. And a lot of people thought it was fake. Here's a little clip from it.
C augmented over D flat augmented.
The reason that some people thought it was fake is that they don't know what perfect pitch is. And the other thing is that Dylan is actually naming really complex chords. In that clip you just saw, he said the chord C augmented over D flat augmented. Well, when I realized that Dylan had perfect pitch, he was about 3.5 or so. So I experimented to see how many notes he could hear simultaneously. And when I realized he could hear as many as I could play, I started teaching him music theory. D major over E flat augmented.
A flat augmented.
E flat augmented. Over the course of the next year, I did a couple more videos, also mainly on Facebook, not really on YouTube, because my YouTube channel hadn't really started. I want you to listen to it and sing the notes.
F sharp, C sharp, F sharp, D sharp, B, D.
That's correct. Each time we did a new video, we tried to explore some new concept. Like in this video, Dylan is actually writing the notation. That's correct. Write it down. It's been about 3 years since we've done one of these videos, and we just did one. Here it is. All right, Dylan. Been a long time since we did this.
What he's doing there is he's trying to prove to the audience that he's not playing a preset series of chords in which the subject, Dylan here, is reading from a script. He's going like, I'm just going to bang on the keyboard, so his relative pitch. He's ruling out the possibility of relative pitch.
Sing A flat.
A flat.
What's this note?
D. B flat. C. B. G.
Okay, sing from the bottom up this.
B, D, A, C, F sharp, G.
Good. How about from the top down? This is a tricky one here.
E, C, A, F, C sharp, A sharp, F sharp, D.
Very good. What's the name of this chord, Dylan?
And 9 over B flat major.
Okay, what about this chord? Sing from the bottom up.
C, F, G, D flat, E flat, A flat, D.
What's the name of this chord, Dylan?
C, diminished major 7 over D minor.
Sing D minor.
D, F, A.
Sing from the bottom up. Let's say, how about this?
G sharp, D sharp, B, F, B flat, G.
Very good. I'm gonna play a double polychord, Dylan. What's this?
A flat major over G Lydian over F sharp major over F minor.
Sing G Lydian.
G, C sharp, D.
Very good, Don. What two notes are these?
B flat A.
How about this?
F, C sharp.
So, Dylan, tell people how much you use your perfect pitch.
Barely.
Do you even ever think of it when you're listening to songs?
No.
The only time you use it is when?
When you tell me to.
If I ask Dylan what a chord is or something, he'll tell me that. But other than that, it doesn't even occur to you, correct?
Correct.
Is it annoying?
Yes.
But out-of-tune notes don't bother you, right?
No.
Dylan's perfect pitch is one thing. That's not incredibly rare. 1 in 10,000 people have it. But there are many degrees of perfect pitch. some people can identify maybe a couple notes in one chord strike. Some people can identify only one note. To be able to identify what you're hearing exactly, you actually need to know music theory. If you're saying a chord, like Dylan said in there, C diminished major 7 over D minor. I've been asked over the last couple of years, when are you going to do an ear training course? Well, I've been working on one for the last 2 years.
Then he goes on to market a relative pitch program that he's selling. So I'll stop that there. But that's bonkers.
It's insane.
To be able to do that and do it accurately. And this guy, by the way, has nothing to gain by lying. Like, he's got a resume and a career behind him, and he would have no reason to fabricate that. None whatsoever. So here's me backing that up, staking my own career on it, that kid is doing what he's saying he's doing. That's unreal. And isn't it strange that people with that ability tend to find themselves into the world of music creation? There could be folks walking around out there that have perfect pitch or different degrees of it. And by the way, it's not an on or off thing. It's not a binary, like either you have it or you don't. It's an ability to objectify sound frequencies as colors or as smells or as sense of some kind, like, oh, that's an apple because I saw an apple and that's what an apple is. Or that is brown because I saw brown and somebody told me it was. So forth, like that. It's just like abstracting it. They find themselves in the way of music creation because it's an part, it's a dimension of their existence that's more sensory than doing physical labor or exercising or doing academic work. It's interesting. People with this ability or disability, depending upon how you see it, which we'll talk about in a second, tend to make it their life's work to be in the place that's more sensory than the opposite. Yeah. Okay. So here is a short documentary, this very short documentary, I should say, from none other than Adam Neely, although I'm sure you're familiar with Adam Neely at this point because I'm a massive fan of his. We did the music theory and white supremacy unit with him. Remember that?
Yeah. Yep.
So he does this whole... he does this video about perfect pitch, and there's sort of three main points here. One, that it's not necessarily useful in a musical context, being able to objectify musical pitch and do that. It's not helpful. You know what I mean?
What do you mean by not helpful?
Practically not helpful, because imagine an artist being unable to tell the difference between dark green and light green.
Okay.
It's just kind of like, that's like a bare minimum.
Yeah.
But most musicians don't have that, and they get by just fine. Rather, and you know what? Before I say that, this video, I should say why it's not necessarily helpful. So my only experience in my life with this was from a colleague of mine that I worked with when I was working with the military, the Department of National Defense, the Penhold Air Cadet Training Center, where one of the instructors, one of my fellow Air Force servicewomen, we were just like hanging out in like a staff room kind of thing, and somebody went over and played piano, and she said like, it's an E flat. And I was like, how'd you know that? She's like, oh, I have perfect pitch. I'm like, really? Do you? So I went over and like played some notes. She's like, yeah, this just like that video I just showed you. And I was like, wait a second, like, if you might have relative pitch because you're good, and she was really good, like an excellent musician, flautist, cellist, and so I just like went over and like just mushed my hands on the keyboard, and held them down, and then she said, "That's this in this range." And I was like, "Holy shit, you're not lying! You can really do that. This is unbelievable. I have to talk to you." So like, bought her a beer in the mess hall after the shift change, and they're like, "So what's this like for you?" It's like, "Well, okay, so this is something that I've been able to do for a while, and it's kind of bizarre because like Brett, I don't know what your voice sounds like. Apparently people's voices have sound and pitch and like tone quality to them, but all I hear is sound waves. Like are you familiar with what a sine wave sounds like?
Simon,
Like a
no.
like a boop.
Maybe I'm not too sure.
How can I put this? Like a schoolyard bell. Like there's this loudspeaker that just goes like beep.
Oh, is it like the one where there's like one line and there's just a bunch of waves?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's just what everything sounds like to this woman. A cello sounds exactly like a human voice, sounds exactly like a bass drum, sounds exactly like a fart, sounds like everything. It's just like, and some with like oscillations to them, like a, but everything is just like tone quality. So everything has to be exactly in tune to her.
Oh, I see.
Or else. So like her favorite thing was playing cello because it's just like this one note and it's very vibrational. It's at the center of your core. You know, you're sitting with it. Or a flute where the vibration source is so close to your brain that it's like your head vibrating. Or singing in barbershop quartets where like it's all quite, there's no vibrato and like kind of an orchestration to it, but like she's like, I played cello and she played really well, and it's like I tried playing an orchestra and she's like, I can't deal with it. As soon as there's any percussion or any kind of like reverb in the room, it's like this just sounds like garbage to me. I can't deal with it. It's just too much. Probably a synesthesia thing. It could be she was also high functioning Asperger's. So there's that, but also I asked her so you know, what does that mean for you as a musician? I mean, like you could do professional things, and she said, nah, no, this is too much stuff. It's too bonkers. But I did, however, because my mom is Japanese, my dad is Scottish. Not me, her name, her. Like we actually were part of a genetic testing thing about this because you know it's not fun, like going through life with like an auditory, like neurodivergency. So, it turns out her mom knew a bunch of researchers and anyway, but it turns out like all of the females on her side of the family, and her mom is Japanese. Not that really matters, but it kind of goes back to like the Asian culture of like pitch-based languages thing, and like all of them have this thing, and they do like long studies. And now she's part of this larger like PhD research program about like how this particular condition like exists as a genetic function, and also how it exists over the course of your life. And as you're about to see with this documentary, it's not fun. It seems like it's a cool thing to be able to go A flat D C G E C, blah, 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 blah. But also as it continues throughout your life, it's not great. So anyway, three main points of this thing were one, what are the differences between like being able to tell notes because you're a trained musician and being able to kind of tell what's going on, what that's like as a musician, and then also what it's like during later in age. So we'll watch this thing and then color at night. Anything to add? I've been talking a lot. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's all right. Yeah, I guess I have nothing to add. Yeah.
Okay. If you want to stop this to ask questions, please say so, because there's a lot of information to write really quick in this one.
Interesting test of perfect pitch, your ability to identify a note without a reference. I'm going to play you 2 notes, and I'm going to ask you a question. Ready? Okay. Here's note 1, and here's note 2. So my question for you is this. Which of these 2 notes was higher than the other? This question sounds simple, but statistically speaking, if you have perfect pitch, you are less likely to get this question correct than people like me who don't have perfect pitch, because you're perceiving the pitch chroma, the name of the note, more readily than the relationship between the notes. It's very interesting. Here's another one. I'm going to play you 2 melodies. This is melody 1 and melody 2. Even though the melodies start on different notes, the distances between the notes is the same. And so we think of them as being the same melody, just transposed to different keys. But that isn't as immediately obvious to people with perfect pitch. There's a 2002 study where musicians with perfect pitch and without perfect pitch were shown sheet music of a melody and then played that melody back in a different key. They were then asked if the sheet music was the same melody as what they were hearing. Is this the same melody? And if it isn't the same melody, where does the melody change? Musicians with perfect pitch fared worse at perceiving the transpositional identity of the same melody than musicians without perfect pitch. Very interesting. Now, don't get me wrong. There are many things that people with perfect pitch can do that I can't. And I am definitely jealous of what folks like June Lee and Jacob Collier can do with their superhuman feats of ear training. But there are some reasons why you might not want to have perfect pitch, and your life as a musician or music lover is better without it. Let's get into them. This video is brought to you by CuriosityStream and my streaming service Nebula. Perfect pitch, or technically absolute pitch, is a disease.
We're here with Charlie Pooh. Charlie has a really crazy talent. He has a disease that's called perfect pitch. And basically can hear notes and he knows what they are just by listening to them.
It's hard to know just how many people are afflicted by the malady. Some studies suggest that it's just 1 in 10,000, but the noted epidemiologist Jimmy Fallon pegs that number a little bit higher.
Do you know what that is, perfect pitch? Like, less than 1% of us have this talent.
And my YouTube algorithm breaking poll pegs that number at 3%, which is a lot higher than 1 in 10,000. So what exactly is going on here? Pitch perception exists kind of on a gradient from I have no idea what's going on to
C, F, G, D, 45, A, 5, D.
You can kind of think of 4 categories here. Untrained, relative pitch, quasi-absolute pitch, and absolute pitch. And the way that we're going to talk about this is in terms of color perception, because that's often how people with absolute pitch think of it, as pitch chroma, pitch color. Untrained pitch is when you just don't categorize pitch when you're listening to music. It's like seeing the world in black and white. You might have a very deep relationship to the objects in the scene. The apple tastes just as fine to you, but you aren't perceiving the pitch. Absolute pitch is like seeing the world in color. You don't have to think about whether or not the apple is red. It's just red. The plant.
Just to be clear, he's using the word absolute pitch as a synonym for perfect pitch because it's weird to call something perfect and it doesn't translate well to other languages. Really, we should be calling it absolute pitch. Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes sense.
Is green. The note is F sharp. With true absolute pitch, there is no thought process and no reference. The current scientific thinking suggests that the encoding occurs very early on in auditory perception. People who speak tonal languages, like Mandarin, where the pitch contour is very important in communicating information, are more likely to develop absolute pitch than people who don't natively speak tonal languages, as well as people who start their musical training very early on in life. A full 74% of native Mandarin speakers who had their musical training start before age 5 had developed absolute pitch in one study, way more than that 1 in 10,000 number cited earlier. Now, I know this is controversial, but it's generally...
Did you catch that statistic?
No, can you try that again?
Like,
yeah, sorry.
I'll contextualize it. Evidently, based on very few studies, like 1 in 10,000 people in Western cultures have perfect pitch, but like 1 in 5 of tonal-based language speakers have this.
It changes. It depends. Like if you're, what am I gonna say? I guess never mind. I forgot what I was gonna say.
The point being is that he just showed us a statistic that says like people of Asian descent are far more likely to experience this phenomenon, either temporarily or permanently.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, showing that it's not a binary, either you have it or you don't. It's a spectrum of experience that highlights both nature and nurture, and also the incredible diversity of human beings.
We understood that you cannot learn perfect pitch as an adult. It is something that is learned in early childhood, and there's really nothing that you can do about it. But you can learn something which is almost as good, and that is called quasi-perfect pitch. Quasi-absolute pitch is kind of like looking at this grayscale image and seeing the apple and then remembering, oh yeah, apples are red, and then seeing color. It's not as immediate, it's based on a memory, but you can use that memory to your advantage. There's a couple of ways that this works. The first way is what's called true pitch, or instrument-specific absolute pitch. It's when you are so familiar with the timbre of a specific note on a specific instrument because you've played it over and over again. It's why many guitarists just know what the sound of the open E string of a guitar is. That's the open E string. Woodwind players, especially in my experience, clarinet players often have this because there's such a unique tone color to every note on the instrument, and they become very familiar with those unique tone colors as they relate to pitch. This all adds up to the thought process of, hey, that's an apple, and apples are red. There's also something called...
By the way, earlier today I was practicing this lesson, and my spouse, who's a clarinet player, I was like, Stephanie, just curious, can you sing a B flat? Because that's like the tuning pitch of a B flat clarinet. And she was like, oh God, I don't know. Like this. And then she went, bah, and she was like right on. I'm like, ha 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 ha. God, interesting. Proving my point. I'll tell this story later. And then I did. All right. Sorry, onwards.
Called heightened tonal memory, which affects both musicians and non-musicians. Sometimes it's called the Levitin effect, where you've heard a song so often before that you can always reproduce that song in the correct key.
Honestly, you know what I go to? I go to a couple things. I go to Green Dolphin Street for one, so I always know where always know where E flat is. I go to the So What bass line, so I always know where D.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a real good one.
And I go to an F blues.
Interesting. Okay.
Some people might think I have perfect pitch if I'm quick enough at picking out those anchor points using relative pitch to figure out whatever the note you just played was. But that's not what's happening. It's actually just I'm just bouncing it off of a memory that I have as like an anchor, and then using relative pitch to figure it out.
Like for me, unfortunately, the song that the Levitin effect is most lodged in my brain is the last chorus to Don't Stop Believing by Journey. That's an E, by the way, that truck, because the last chorus of Don't Stop Believing goes, don't stop, which is an A and G sharp, and then that's down to an E. I'm not even gonna check. But I don't have perfect pitch, I just have that tonal memory so deep in my brain because of cover gigs. Relative pitch is the final category, and it's probably the most useful for musicians. It's what we're trained in. It's the ability to identify notes and scales and chords and melodies and intervals and the relationships between them. So if you played this for a trained musician, they'd probably be able to tell you, oh yes, that's a 2 minor 7, a 5/7 flat 9, and a 1 major 7. They wouldn't necessarily be able to tell you the names of the notes, but they could tell you the relationships between them, so that if you gave a reference, like you said the first chord began on the note G, they could calculate out the rest of the notes in the rest of the chords. The implications of this are kind of weird when you apply the color analogy here. It's like seeing this image in grayscale and then being told that the plant is green, therefore the apple must be red. It's like you're perceiving the wavelengths of the green and then calculating out the redness of the apple. Having relative pitch is kind of like being colorblind and then working out what colors are based on context. Color analogy breaks down a little bit here, but it's still kind of useful in understanding how other people might experience pitch. You know, when you assign words like red to some kind of color experience, you're assigning a category to that experience. It's called categorical perception. And that categorical perception is very much dependent on the language with which you speak. So for example, in Russian, there are multiple words for what in English we might just call like blue. Like there are multiple words for this. What's interesting is that studies of perfect pitch and absolute pitch have really just dealt with one kind of category, and that is 12-tone equal temperament. People who are trained in 12-tone equal temperament are more likely to assign their perception to the notes of the piano. I'd be really fascinated to see if that translates to different kinds of tuning systems in different cultures that didn't have 12-tone equal temperament as the default, but there haven't been any studies on that, so we shall see. So to recap, we have 4 ways of experiencing pitch. We have absolute pitch, we have quasi-absolute pitch, we have relative pitch, and then we have the untrained ear. So with all that in mind, why possibly would a musician not want to have absolute pitch? Why wouldn't we want to see the world in color? That seems strange. Well, I have some unfortunate news for the people with perfect pitch watching this video, and it comes from the great concert pianist, Abby Simon.
If you have absolute pitch, perfect pitch, if you live long enough, you will lose it.
Rick Beato did a video recently on people who lose their perfect pitch, and it seems to be that this is something that happens universally across the board after a certain age. Like if you have it, you only have a short window to enjoy it and use it before it goes away.
So your perfect pitch has shifted.
No, it's gone down the tube.
A study from 2012 found that 16 out of 20 people tested with absolute pitch over the age of 45 had their absolute pitch shifted by a semitone or more. This was corroborated by another study in 2016.
Just to contextualize this, imagine if you woke up tomorrow and I asked you, what color is this? And you said green.
That would suck.
And I'd be like, nah, dude, it's still red. It's the same one. This whole thing that you've been living your life with, knowing that this is blue, and this is red, and this is white, and this is a remote control, and this is a pen, and all of those things were all of a sudden trains, off-white, and mucus. You'd be like, what is even reality anymore? Like, and also, I have to play, because I'm a musician, because that's what I've been doing all my life. I've been told that this thing is a superpower and I can do amazing things. But then, after a certain age, it just completely distorts and your sense of reality is gone. That's worse than torture. That is torture. Sorry.
Yeah.
Then that's kind of the story that nobody kind of talks about. Like this ability to like see pitch and taste color and so forth. And then the longer you live, the more it just turns into
mush.
Yeah. And how torturous that must be. Anyway, sorry. I'll finish this thing off here.
Which also found that this perfect pitch shift had nothing to do with the mechanical hearing loss that normally comes with aging. In the Society for Music Theory listserv, researcher David Huron asked the question if there were any examples of people over the age of 60 who didn't experience this pitch shift. none were given. The great jazz vibraphonist Gary Burton has talked frequently about his loss of perfect pitch, like on this interview from Adam Tan's YouTube channel.
Well, it was interesting. It was confusing. I lost the perfect pitch in 2011. It was something I had gotten used to and kind of depended on as a sense of always kind of knowing where everything is. Suddenly discovered that, that piece of information was no longer available to me.
In her master's thesis, Understanding and Dealing with the Loss of Absolute Pitch as One Ages, Mary L. Bianco catalogs correspondence with older musicians who have lost their absolute pitch. The experience was annoying, often getting in the way of my enjoyment of music. I am sad to have lost something that felt very special to me. What was occurring was truly jolting to my sense of musicality and my sense of self. Another account reads, around the time I got my first pair of reading glasses, my sense of absolute pitch started to waver. I got C's and B's mixed up, and to be honest, this was a surprisingly alarming development. A whole dimension of my existence seemed to fade away. The thing to me that's most frightening about this is not just that the perfect pitch goes away, like you're now seeing the world in black and white when you used to see it in color. Because it sounds like that's not really what's happening to people with perfect pitch as they age. Instead, it's like everybody's still seeing the world in color, but it's all wrong. It's like all of a sudden you wake up and the world looks like this, all weird and hue shifted. But the apple still is red in reality, and the entire world acts as if it's red, and you remember it being red at one point, but you just can't see it that way. It's like musical reality is trying to gaslight you into thinking that your own ears are wrong. You have to perform the feat of pretending that the apple is red day in and day out in your musical life. But to you, no matter how hard you try, it isn't. So with lots of anecdotal evidence and some limited research to suggest that if you have perfect pitch, you will eventually lose it and feel like a stroke patient who has to fight to force his limbs to work again. Oh God, I'm not sure if I really want perfect pitch. I'm happy having relative pitch and just existing in my own black and white world, thank you very much. I talked a lot about pitch perception with fellow YouTuber and memester Charles Cornell in a recent conversation on perfect pitch.
There's a channel, hilarious, super talented voice actor, ProZD. Did you ever see the video that he put out that was, I can recite every line from Peter Pan?
Yep.
I'll run him through. Huh, take that.
Did you notice what was going on there that was very, very interesting from a musical perspective?
You can watch some more of our conversation over on the extended version of this video, which is available exclusively on Nebula.
And then he goes on to plug his essentially premium channel there. It's yeah. Anyway, I hope this has shed some light on that kind of topic. There's nothing practically to do here except for being aware that it's not something that you can develop. It's something that you just have, and then eventually goes away and tortures you. But in the meantime, the people that have it can do some incredible things with performance, with theory, with analysis, and just sort of like productivity too, unless there's synesthesia happening at the same time where it's just really overwhelming. So this is just my own bias on it, but like I tend to see like, really excellent musicians without this as kind of being like smoldering coals, like they're able of cooking awesome things. But people with perfect pitch as like fireworks that are incredible, but they only exist for a short period of time. And they're both part of the same fire. They're both part of the same like beautiful energy, but they just express themselves in different ways. And neither one is better or worse or more able or less able. It's just like, if I could make a Dungeons and Dragons analogy, like one is like chaotic good, and the other is like lawful neutral, and they're all part of the same raiding party. Earlier, we were talking about Jacob Collier. Is there any thing you know about Jacob Collier that you wanted to share with this? Because he has like a version of this. It's not necessarily as debilitating as someone like Lord. But you were talking about it. What do you have to share about him?
I just actually remember when he was actually up on stage. I'm not sure if it was like a TEDx or a TED Talks. I don't remember exactly, but there's actually like this out of tune piano on the side, and he just literally produced this really perfect pitch, and then he showed like what key was supposed to be, but then it was like all out of tune. But he was also able to identify the notes between those things too. But
I think I know the one you're talking about. Is it this one?
Yep, that one.
Okay, well, I'll put this as a footer to the end of the video. But for anybody still watching to this point in the video, Jacob Collier is like a Grammy Award winning.
He's awesome.
He's unbelievable. This does not sum up his career at all, but he's up there with like he's in the stratosphere of human existence as far as musical expression is concerned.
I suppose the more I've recorded things over the years, the more I've realized that this is not in tune. It's not in tune at all. To very quickly demonstrate, if you take a major I mean, you guys know this because this is like Pythagoras figured this stuff out, right? But like, you know, on the piano, this is a G major chord, and the major third is actually 14 cents too high, which means 14 hundredths of a semitone. So
that is
the
awesome.
It's like, it's like that out of tune. But like I realized this, and it's like, how does no one know this stuff, man? Like, it's crazy. It's like a hoax. So I just strive to sing more in tune, and had to disregard computers knowing better than I did, because I had to learn about how to tune chords by ear. And I suppose
that's interesting. I haven't seen that one in a while. There's more context to be given here.
Yeah, it's like a longer video.
Yeah. Have you seen the one where he draws? He draws chords with a digital audio workstation.
I don't think I have.
Okay, so well, you've done enough work with GarageBand with me to know that if you're playing with like the digital synthesizer right into the computer, it doesn't register. Sound wave registers as like programming information for which pitch to play at what velocity at what time, at what length. So he does that, but and it's registered as like dots on a screen, right? It's called MIDI, or musical instrument digital interface. Yeah, and he does this like, it's definitely like a parlor trick sort of thing, but he's able to like draw words on the screen that correspond with like the music that's being played. Here's like a super cheesy example, but it's really quick. This is getting long as it is, so this is the last thing. Here we go.
Why does it sound so good?
Yeah, he's obviously planned this and practiced it, right? But yeah, he's unbelievable. I'll try to put some more of his like.
Can you do that, Mr. Vallon?
Oh, not at that level. Hold on, there's this thing. I wonder if this is the same one. I think no, he's just doing the happy birthday thing. He's just like playing the video. Anyway. I need to review his catalog and share that later, because he's unreal. Like,
yeah, he's just super awesome.
He can play everything and has perfect pitch, and yeah, multi Grammy Award winning like things, PhD. It's unreal. Anyway, thanks everyone for tuning into this one. There's a lot of exciting things coming. We've got some awesome original tunes that are being in the process of doing that. I'm live streaming a recording session that I'm going to do at Bedford Road Collegiate tomorrow, where I would normally bring like most of the class, but COVID's going bonkers again, so I'm just going to go alone and get in and get out when they have the room vacant. Are you familiar with orchestra chimes, man?
Sorry?
Orchestra chimes?
Orchestra chimes? Like, I don't think the ones like those incredibly long tubes.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
I'll show it.
Because there's like different kinds of chimes in orchestra, like this really tiny ones or the really huge ones.
Yeah, like this is probably the...
Or the ones you use a mallet.
Yeah, you use hammers. This is about 7 feet tall, to give it some context. And yeah, you hit them with hammers, and it's So I'm going in to record a section of a piece tomorrow for that. They'll have to mix in. It should probably be done by Monday or so, depending.
You're so lucky you get to play those.
Yeah, dude. That's what. It's fun to play them once, but they're a bit of a chore. It's not exactly. It ain't fun like piano. It's a task, and you have to like maintain the hammers, and the instrument itself is like 450 pounds. Imagine taking those on tour. I've dissembled my share of orchestra bells, orchestra chimes, and they sound incredible. But good lord, are they ever?
Have we bought a cello on a plane before?
Yeah. Anyway, that'll be fun. And I'm going to live stream the session. I'll just put my phone there and put it on Facebook Live. If you want to tune in, then go ahead. It's not going to be super exciting, but it'll be something to document and something for people to witness. So, yeah. Okay. That's it. Nutana Music still alive and well throughout the pandemic, continuing to do cool stuff, talk about interesting things. It's kind of the bare minimum, isn't it? Anyway, thanks very much for being here tonight, everybody, and see you when I see you. Voids out.